Welcome. This is the podcast series dedicated to living a revenue culture. Long-term business survival is about creating the maximum profit possible from the resources you have available. And revenue science tells us that if you live a revenue culture, and that definition is you've maximized your profits because you've optimized your people, and they were optimized in a low friction context. If you just think about that for a second, you know you're never going to maximize profit unless your people are optimized, and you'll never optimize people if they're not in a low friction context. People don't optimize in chaos. So this podcast series is dedicated to helping us all learn how do we do that? How do we maximize our opportunity given the resources we have? We do it twice a month, and we bring you people from the real world who are out there, sometimes massively successful doing it, and sometimes kind of doing some of the struggles the rest of us have. And they're going to help us understand what's working, what's not working, and what they're going to try next. And we do those twice a month. And this one, we just got notified in the new year. We've been doing this 5 years. And so that gave us enough information to say we're going to start to change some things up. And you're going to get to hear about some of that today because we have a very special guest. Our guest today is Joshua Toupalik. And Joshua started being an entrepreneur in high school. I think he was an entrepreneur before he was a legal driver. And he also started working for me about that time. So at this point, he's been working for me for 10 years. And he's been an entrepreneur at the same time. And he just recently launched a new marketing company, Golden Horizon Media. And he does our work and some work for some other people we do business with. So he's really good at that stuff. But he decided, I guess a couple of years ago now, that AI was the future and maybe his future as well. And so he's done things for our company that I would never have dreamed were possible. He's transferred value to our clients that before he created some of the new capabilities we have, if somebody said, "Could you do this for me?" I'd say, "Yeah, it might cost 15, 20 grand." Now it's free because he's built a structure for us. But best of all, Joshua is my grandson. And so he's also going to be my partner doing these podcasts going forward. So I said after 5 years, we're going to change things up. We're going to kind of combine Gen Z with boomers here, and we're going to see what kind of outcomes we get. But Joshua, welcome. Glad to have you here.
Thank you for having me. It's exciting to be here. Like you said, 5 years in the making now, but I've been behind the scenes doing all the editing, and now here I am on the screen. So it's pretty exciting. Thank you.
Yeah, and Joshua also just, even though he's been working for us all this time, we had not certified him in Chief Revenue Officer thinking until just recently. So he's one of our new alums from Chief Revenue Officer thinking. So even though he edited and managed so much of the process, he's now certified in it as well. So so Josh, tell us, you know, you started your commitment to being in business in creative, innovative businesses a long time ago. Tell us what got you there and kind of just walk us up to today.
Well, in high school, I was, always on the creative side. I enjoyed music a lot. I had done band in elementary school, so I just kind of always had a passion for music, which led into, other creative pathways. And I saw, musicians forming groups with people, turning it into a legitimate business. There was a brand behind it, there's clothing. And to me, like that was really cool because it was more than just music, which I've always had so many different passions. So just the combination of everything was really cool to me. And, seeing video gamers turn that into careers or even people who just paint on the side, it was just really cool to see people to be able to do that. And I wanted to do that as well. So I started early in high school, and like I said, I had a passion for music early, so I started there. I helped other musicians who wanted to, start doing it seriously because at that time we're 15-year-olds. Nobody thinks that it's a serious thing for us. And so for me, I said, how do we make it a serious thing? And so we started making clothing and, putting their presence online on different social medias. So just the combination of all those early things I learned is kind of what helped push me to where I am today. Just now I'm more focused on the business aspect of it and helping other businesses. I've actually thought about maybe helping musicians again though, just because I have a, brand new outlook on it and a whole rebranding, if you would say. But who knows where I'll end up, but just helping businesses and helping our business grow right now. So that's kind of my focus, but that's kind of how I started. And I ended up going to school for music production, which I thought was kind of silly after I was there because I already knew everything I was learning. And also, I wanted to learn the stuff I didn't know. So I ended up switching to business. Unfortunately, some math is kind of hard for me, so that didn't work out very well. So I said, there's still other aspects I can bring to business. What else am I passionate about? So I went in for, I think the actual degree is titled Digital Media Arts. So it's just a combination of, video editing, photo editing, marketing, creating spreadsheets, forms, brochures, just anything you could think of online. And so everything I learned from there, I just figured how do I package this into a business? And then AI kind of happened. And it wasn't the major AI boom that we're seeing now. It was more smaller stuff, which made me kind of question my spot in school. And I'd already got my associate's degree, so I was like, maybe can I start my business at this point, or is there more that I need to learn? And at that point, I just wanted to jump into it, and I started doing my own things, and here I am today now doing stuff with you as well as my own stuff. So it's just been a really cool journey.
Yeah. And, Josh, one of the things that has really astounded me is how, when you see a problem, and it's one you've never seen before, you've never technically approached it, explain how you learn how to get that solved and what to do about it. Because for those of us who are boomers, the way you've picked up that learning is just kind of hard to imagine.
I mean, I think it goes hand in hand with my generation. We kind of grew up more with technology and stuff, so I actually attribute a lot of that to just different softwares I've used over the years. If you think about it, a lot of these softwares have the same UI, a lot of them function the same way. So I've kind of just built up a knowledge base of how these systems and softwares work. I also enjoy video games and watching movies and all types of stuff, which enhances my creativity, I believe. I don't want to ever say that, the inner child in me is dead or anything. I always like to think that I'm continuing to grow my inner child as well as my adulthood. So, just a combination of just mixing and not being afraid of experimenting and testing things just because with everything being digital, the amount of things we can create and the speed we can, who cares if you mess up? You just delete it and you restart. And that was a lot of my early years, I mean, from 15 to maybe 20, that whole 5 years was spent just failing on these softwares and messing up and then learning. And at the end of the day, I learned a lot of it came down to there was a different software that I needed to pair with that software. And that just came from all those years of failing and moving on to different things and learning what worked and what you could pair together. I mean, for example, now a lot of our scripting or writing and whatnot is a combination of what we've already done. but now it's throwing AI into the mix and being able to revamp it and asking, how do we modernize this? And so it's just, like I said, combining things that we've already done with new things that we learned. And I've been doing that my whole life. So it's just kind of simple and easy to me. Whenever a new software or a trend comes out, I'll just kind of think of, how did I learn the last one? And I failed. And so I just jump into it.
Yeah, it's interesting that those of us who the boomer side of this conversation, we were always afraid if we touch things and we'd break them.
Right.
And so instead of trying and failing, we were just worked so hard at um, not creating an error or, not doing it in the wrong sequence so that something crashed. And that's just so opposite of how you approach it. And I think it's how we need to help our clients going forward because the world around us is changing so fast. If we wait till it's perfect, the world's a mile ahead of us.
Exactly. And also, I mean, I'm sure I won't put a timestamp on it, but I'm sure at some point you guys didn't have the ability to be able to test it in the background like we can today. There's the ability to create the drafts before they go live or you publish them and whatnot. So I'm sure that capability today is also, a leading factor behind that.
Well, I can tell you when you worked on 8-inch floppy disks and there were no hard disks and there was no internet, just backing up a file could take 15 minutes.
Yeah, I don't even want to think about it.
Well, we won't. We'll move on. So, one of the things in on this podcast and in the world of the revenue game, revenue science, we've learned purpose is really, really, really important. And purpose drives our energy, our passions, our creativity. So, when you look at business and in what you're doing now, what's your purpose? What gets you all excited?
Just as I said before, with all my failures, with a lot of that comes success now and knowledge that some people don't have. So just being able to help other people, achieve their goals or get to where they want to be, because a lot of the times they know what they want to do, but sometimes they just don't know how to get there or what it is it takes to get there. And so I like to believe that I have those capabilities, those tools, and the ability to get them to where they want to be because most of the time it's digital. Nine times out of 10, it's a digital problem. And I would like to believe that, I can solve any kind of digital business or creativity problem, whatever it may be. And if I can't, it's exciting to figure out how. So I
Yeah,
think that's kind of the purpose and what drives me, just being able to help other people, achieve what they want and be happy and successful.
well, and it for me, for Grandpa, it's been really cool because you've worked with a lot of my friends, my peers, my partners, and it's really been interesting to watch the mix of the Gen Z and the boomers and how eager the boomers are to have somebody help them solve those problems that they don't quite get. And so from your standpoint, what's it like, as a young professional to work with people 2 generations older and with different learnings? Like you said, you grew up digital. How does it feel? What's it like on your side?
Yeah, going into those conversations, it's kind of crazy because I'm sitting there kind of worried to, say anything or give my input, but actually, like everybody wants to hear it. So that's kind of cool. But at the same time, I'm still trying to learn that, because I don't know, I feel like in school, you grow up, you raise your hand or whatnot, you wait till it's your turn. And so I just kind of feel skeptical to give out my thoughts sometimes, but when I do, it's really cool to see, the feedback and the reaction. So I think I'm still just trying to get comfortable with it, but it's really cool. And maybe it is like you said, 2 generations. I don't know if it was 1 generation ahead. I don't know if they would be as accepting, but maybe they would be. But everybody that we've worked with have has been great, and I love being able to give my feedback now, so I feel very valued.
Well, good. Because you sure bailed me out of a bunch of stuff, so that's good. So let's talk a little bit. I mentioned earlier, we're going to change this podcast going forward. So, and you and I have been having this conversation for a couple of months, but talk about how you think we can be more inclusive so that when I do my piece, I'm probably primarily speaking to boomers and, an older group, but that's not who the future is. And that's not who's creating the new, coolest new businesses that have the greatest growth. So as you think about this podcast going forward, and you think about how we, because I know one of the things you talk about a lot is how do we get our community involved? The people who are watching this, how do we get them involved and let them have a voice in it? What do you think about when you think about what we should do next?
Well, going forward, everything is probably going to look very different. While also saying that, if you are an audio listener, you may want to in the future begin to start watching these. I would like to believe, correct me if I'm wrong, there's going to be more visual elements, maybe some more teaching and structure behind it. Going along with that, I think I'm going to be partaking in a lot of that visual creation, which I think will help bridge those generation gaps. So I'll also be able to, have my input, maybe ask questions, or, even have my own little segments. So we'll see what it is going forward. But those are just kind of like ideas that I have. And just that alone, we're still going to be interviewing people. So we're going to be adding an education side as well as, informing and, letting you know about these people that are out there that are doing really cool things. So we're also going to be able to help, visually teach them some of this stuff.
Yep. Yeah. And one of the things you and I have been talking about that will happen this year is building a community around the science. And because of that, I hope we get a lot from the audience of ideas they'd like us to cover, the
Right.
kinds of interviews they'd like us to do, and maybe you can help us get to a point. We've never done true live podcasts, but maybe we'll get to be able to do live podcasts and take questions right from the audience and address them in real time. So those are some
Yeah.
things I hope we get to be able to do this year.
Definitely. Yeah, we've talked about maybe doing some webinars and stuff. So maybe the webinars is the place that we collect the questions and we answer them on the podcast, or, like we said, or we do it live. Who knows? There's so many options. We're still kind of building it out, but whatever we do end up choosing, it will be cool regardless. So, and hopefully we do get a lot of feedback and help from the community on some of the stuff we cover.
And have you given any thought to types of guests that we could have in the future that may be different? I mean, I think you're probably the youngest person we've had, and that's probably because the people I talk to and invite are older, so
Right.
probably we need a few younger ones.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking of a couple friends of mine that are in similar spaces or different spaces and different businesses that could be cool to maybe reach out to them and bring on. So that could be something cool to do.
Yeah, and we have people with technology backgrounds, but we haven't done. It's probably what I'm limited and I can ask. And now with you, we can probably ask a whole different set of questions than I would have asked before. Uh, and so, any ideas you have or anybody else has to give us, new direction and new focus would be extremely helpful.
Yep.
So in the work that you have, done with me and the revenue game clients and our partners, what have you found as a young person coming in most surprising or most interesting?
I think I'll touch back. I said this before, but just like being accepted, just having my thoughts or my feedback being valued. Going into it, I kind of just thought, I wouldn't have any say. I would just kind of be, working for people, not with people. And, that's the opposite. I'm doing a lot of working with today. So it's really cool to be able to do that. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that I thought going into it I would be worried about is, not being accepted, but it's just the complete opposite.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I remember the point in my career. I was a fairly new consultant, had a huge client, and they sent me to go do this particular project. And I was working with two of the biggest consulting firms in the world. And I went there for a year, and I didn't think I understood what they were talking about because what
Yeah.
they were talking about made absolutely no sense to me. And then finally, one day, I made this comment. I said, we were talking about pricing and how should we price this stuff? And I said, it looks to me like our market knows exactly how they want us to price, but we don't pay any attention to them. I never got invited back to that group because nobody wanted to hear that. But today, I think we're more willing to listen to
Yeah.
new ideas because of the cross generation and the technology differences and that
And
kind of.
I think that's a huge part of it, the technology difference and with AI and everything, because a lot of the people don't understand it. So they need to be more, accepting to, the people who do understand it. And unfortunately for some of those people who don't want to, it's the younger guys.
Yeah, and one
I
of
mean,
the
I remember a lot of our early calls because, you said we've worked together for 10 years now. And a lot of our early Zoom calls, there would be some calls where I don't even think I said a single word. I think I would just, I might have said hello to everyone in the beginning, but after that, I kind of just sat there for sometimes, 2 hours or so. So I think there is a lot of, the technology changes is what did that.
one of the things I've noticed with you as part of the team now uh, in the partnership kind of way that you're there is we have a whole lot of different options than we had before. One of the things you've done, and I think the audience would be really interested in, is when we do certifications around revenue science, we have people take surveys. We have people in Zoom sessions just like this where they do Q&A and case studies and that type of work. And so we have a huge amount of stuff. And of course, the clients all have websites and LinkedIn profiles. We got all this stuff. But in the pre-AI, pre-Joshua age, we didn't have a way to prioritize it or put it in categories or um, sequence it so that it could make sense. And now, when we finish a session, you do some training of AI, take all the data, and you take the data for this session, but you can even go back to the two previous sessions and you bring them together and you present the client with what they've really said and learned and achieved in the last 3 weeks. For those of us in the boomer world, those were 2 year projects before.
Yeah. It's crazy the speed. And like you said, I mean, I was there when before AI and we were doing the certifications. I mean, they're miles different. There's not even there's not a comparison to what it is we're doing today.
Because with what you've brought, when we finish a session, we can have their playbook, we can have the training material for the non-revenue people, the engineers or the accountants or the admin or the receptionist, so that they see the key messages and they know the key expectations and they know what an ideal customer looks like. We couldn't do that before.
Right.
So now that's just a standard outcome.
Yep. A really cool standard outcome.
Yeah, very cool standard outcome. So some of that stuff's been really neat. So as you kind of look in the technology space going forward, what are some of the things you think we should be doing, or people in general in the living a revenue culture space should be thinking about or doing or paying attention to that a lot of companies either don't or haven't or don't know how to do?
I mean, just incorporating AI into even simple and regular daily tasks. I mean, there's so many people who just don't use it for things that would just free up hours and hours of time. Like not even just doing work, just asking it questions because the future is going to be AI. So who knows what it's going to be, but we know that it's going to involve it. So like we've said before, people struggle with basic softwares and applications. Those people are going to really struggle with AI. So, I mean, my advice would just, just use it every day. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, you can talk to it, you can text to it. It doesn't matter. Like before, someone that we're close to had a job interview recently, and we said just use the AI, change the voice every time, and it's almost like you talk to four different recruiters or whoever it was. Like it's simple stuff like that that people don't think of. So just, using AI on a daily basis on things that, they wouldn't think of and just trying to incorporate it because it does make our lives better. It really does.
Two things that you showed me that I didn't know. The first one I'd love to have you talk a little bit about is, we were fortunate, we at the revenue game, because we had, I guess I was a hoarder, and I'd hoarded almost every single solitary piece of information or data or messages for now over 35 years. And so share what you did with that so that we could then um, ask it cool questions and use it in a different way. Because I don't think everybody does that. They think if I just go talk to ChatGPT, it should know everything I know.
Yeah, so that's a key part to it. A lot of people don't have that 35 plus years worth of documentation and SOPs and just your overall business growth. I mean, they might have the last 2 to 5 years, but us having that was instrumental to, growing and teaching our AI because at the end of the day, 9 times out of 10, I think you would agree that the AI says something, if not very similar to exactly what you would say. And a lot of that comes back to all the information and training and documents that we've been able to give it. And yeah, you need to kind of train your AI. If you kind of just work with it every single day, it's just going to be like a generic version of it. But that's the thing, as you work with it every single day, it learns you. So for these other people, that's going to be key because they don't have the 35 plus years of documents. So it doesn't know, it doesn't know that user. So that's why, using it as much as you can is key because the more it learns about you, the better it can help you and better optimize for you because it knows you. That's what's been so instrumental for us because it literally knows us. It's almost your brain per scale.
And Josh, I crack up when I'll give you a problem we want to solve, or we want to, you know, see how the data lays out or what our priorities should be. And the AI will come back and say, well, your grandpa would say.
Yep.
And so I am astounded. And one of the things, just for the audience, um, we were fortunate. And again, this was all Josh. He took our content and was able to create an academic program that was used by Alabama A&M as part of their bachelor's degree. And he adopted it to Google Classroom. And the thing as a prior professor I was really concerned about was, I know I can teach it with videos and with text, but I want to make sure somebody actually learns something, because students often will do whatever shortcut they can do just to get the answer and move on. And we were doing this completely virtual. And so the question was, how do we grade them? And what we learned was we could use multiple choice questions highly effectively because it could be in one case, 4 out of 5 were the right answer. In another case, 1 out of 5. In another case, none out of 5. And so guessing was pretty mathematically difficult. You really had to know. And then the AI was an instructor. Whatever their answer, right or wrong, the AI was actually teaching them why it mattered. And if the answers were wrong, it pointed them in the direction to go back and get the answer right. And so it was this, for me, it was an aha that we can use multiple choice questions almost better than we can use short answer in some cases. So that was amazing.
Yeah, that the AI feedback part is huge to that. And I'm in agreement with you on the short answers. I mean, they don't have the same impact as the multiple choice ones do just because of that feedback you can get. And it's like you said, you have to really know the material. You can almost not guess on anything. For me, when I was doing math tests, a lot of it was like, okay, well, there's two answers here. I got 50% chance. But with ours, like you said, there's maybe five, six, and maybe two of them are the right one, maybe one, maybe five, you don't know. So you really have to know the material. And then that feedback part really helps you learn it if you get it wrong.
Yeah, so and that was, as you said, it's the try, be willing to fail. In this case, I don't think we did. I think we really knocked it out of the park, but there was a huge amount of work to get to that. But if you do the work, now we can replicate that any time of day, any place in the world without us having to personally do anything other than
Right.
give them the passwords. So
Yep.
the other thing I'd like you to talk about is when I talk to friends of mine in meetings or at associations or someplace, they say, well, I don't always get the right answer. And that just kind of freaks me because if I had 10 employees and I asked 10 employees the same question, I'd probably get 6 different answers and I'm not sure which ones are right. And I'm always surprised people think AI should be right 100% of the time, but humans might be right 30% of the time. What advice do you have for people to, you know, both train the AI and train themselves?
um, Ask the AI. The AI knows it better than we do. And so one of the first things that you should be doing is, obviously lay out the problem or whatever outcome it is you're trying to achieve and just say, hey, I don't know anything about AI or your software. How do I use you? What's the best tools? And I mean, that's how I learned the AI. I didn't know anything about it. And like you said, sometimes the humans are going to be 30% right. I didn't want to go. I would normally just go onto YouTube, right? And I would just watch a video. But, like you said, maybe he's only 30% right. So why wouldn't I just ask the actual platform that will give me an answer that is 100% correct? Because it knows its database and itself better than anybody else does. So that's what I would suggest, just ask the AI, how do I get this outcome with you? Or how do I do this or that? Just ask it.
Yeah, that has been the learning for the boomer as you do this stuff, how if I just keep asking better and better and tighter questions, I get better and better and tighter answers.
Yep.
And that's been quite kind of astounding. So, as we think about the future, first let's talk about, we're consultants or content providers or trainers. What what do we see, or what do you think our world's going to be like going forward? Because one of the learnings for me, and you and I are working on this for next year, is I grew up selling face to face with people, and I kind of get the fact a lot of people buy stuff and never talk to a human. And so, what should we all be thinking about? How do we use digital and AI to think about attracting, and I don't mean just taking people's money, but creating businesses where we're really providing value to people using today's technology, what ideas do you have for us, or any checklist kinds of things?
I think people need to start shifting their focus. So people need to spend more time, creating and giving out their feedback and their output to their communities, to social media. Not enough people are giving their opinion. I mean, I'm not saying everybody's opinion is right, but at least that's how you can kind of start to figure out if you have an audience or what is working. For us, we're going to have to put our product out to the market, and it's only as successful as it says it is. And we wouldn't know that unless we're actually going out there and we're testing these things and putting out there. I don't think people are testing enough. They're spending 2, 3 quarters, maybe even the whole year building their offer. They finally put it out. It didn't go as they planned, and guess what? Boom, they're burnt. That's it. They don't know what they're doing now. You just have to start testing these things and refining it as you go. And people aren't doing it enough. They're not creating enough. And the more that you're out there, because with AI and stuff, it's going to start to become almost impossible to be discovered because the people who are taking advantage of AI are going to have 5, 10 posts out a day when the rest of us are struggling to get one out a week, you know? And it's just going to get buried. At some point, everything that you put out, you need to look at it as digital real estate, right? When you're putting it out there, you're putting it out there for people to buy into or and invest into, and people might come across it in a week, but a lot of times they might come back to it in 5 years. You've had a lot of content and things that get brought up from clients or just random people that are, how many years old? Sometimes they're almost 10,
Well,
you know?
I'm working on two clients right now I've had for 20 years, and both of them just came back recently.
Yep, and that's the thing. It's that digital real estate. It's always going to be there. It just the buyer might not be looking at that market for that house at that time, but they might be in 5 years. So, you just have to put out as much as you can in today's day and age. And if you don't know how, you got to figure it out. Ask AI how, he'll tell you. And, just go from there. Because people are going to start at the end of the day, like you said, people buy a lot of the times without talking to people, but they bought it because there's somebody behind it that they believe in or they trust in. Like, for example, when you bought Starlink or whatever, Elon Musk's
Yep,
thing, I'm sure you didn't do much talking to people
yep,
just because of, the credibility of, his company and the stuff that it's capable of doing in his products.
yep.
So, it's just getting out there and, creating that kind of face, that authority that people can recognize, trust, and buy from. And it just comes from, putting yourself out there and doing all the work.
Yeah, trust is huge, and the way you describe it is what is harder for us boomers because we think trust is going to be face to face, but it doesn't take long to recognize I buy everything from Amazon because I trust them. I don't even care if they're the cheapest. That's not why I'm doing it. I'm doing it
Yep.
because I don't want to have to do a return. And if I do, I want it to be so simple that, I can send a 12-year-old to do the return for me. And
Yep.
I trust them. Now, one other thing you and I have been talking about that I think our audience might be very interested in. Those of us who've been in business for a while have gone through these. Well, let's see, we've got to be ranked on the search engine. Oh, well, we need to have Google find us. Oh, we need keywords. Oh, we need SEO. And there's this new thing, which I think we call, AI searches, and they're different, right? Can you talk a
Yep.
little? Because you and I are talking about, in my mind, I think we should make our big focus on being found in AI. And one of the things, and if you can speak about this a little bit too, what we found is if you search AI for the revenue game, in Josh's comment about trust, the AI tells a much better story about who we are than I do. So I hope people find us on AI and then listen to what AI says. I mean, I can't do it that well. So talk a little bit about what we could be thinking about going from an SEO type world to a AI search world.
Yeah, obviously SEO and stuff still matters. It doesn't go anywhere. But the thing to be thinking about is that people are using the AIs as search engines. So, Google, Bing, Firefox, whatever, even maybe YouTube. Like I said, I stopped using YouTube to look up certain information. A lot of those things are going to start, they're not going to become like the yellow pages, but there's obviously going to be their place for it, but people are shifting to searching for, even their trips or even what to shop for with their AI. AIs have features now where you can say, "Hey, I'm shopping for this," and it will list out all the different places with the prices literally right there. So it's becoming, go-to search engines for a lot of people. And with that being said, it's going to be the same thing for people looking up business questions or service related problems or whatever the case may be. And if you're not figuring out how to become visible to AI, you're going to fall behind in those spots because not everybody is going to be looking on Google anymore. And some people only solely focus on Google. So you have to really start paying attention to everything that's going on, not just Google, not just, your own website. You have to ask AI, how are you guys how are we coming up on your search and how do we improve it? Because, like for us, we saw that, we might need to do a couple more posts on our website for the website to be found more. But other than that, a lot of our stuff is pretty visible and we have a pretty good standing with the AI search engines. But that goes into your 35 plus years of stuff. The website has so much information. And like you said, it tells a better story than you do. It's because it has all that information. So it's almost viewing you, from a customer's aspect or someone who could be a potential client because they're seeing the same stuff that's accessible to them. And if people don't have that stuff, it's going to be hard to be found.
Yeah. Amen. Amen. So, for our viewers today, I think we're giving you a good idea of what some of our future podcasts are going to be like, because Josh and I are going to do them together with our guests. And so we'll hopefully have some really interesting conversations that combine the best of Gen Z and the best of the boomer world and our experiences, but we're going to time together so that you can see how they work as a team. And one of those who've read the book and unified alignment is something we talk about because if we don't believe in the basic same things, we're never going to be aligned. Just go to Washington and watch Republicans and Democrats. They all believe we should have lower taxes and a safe world and better education, but they are not aligned in anything. So it starts with unification. So that's part of what we're going to be working on. So, Josh, the last question for you um, is what advice do you have for young people coming into the business world first, and then how they can benefit from what you've learned. And then the second question, or the second half of the question is, what should those of us who are a little older be able to do to partner with those young people coming in who bring a whole series of things we don't have?
I think for the younger people to not be afraid to ask questions. I feel like if I asked questions more when I was younger in a lot of, our business meetings and whatnot, I would be further along than I am today. So don't be afraid to ask questions just because I feel like it can be scary, when you're so much younger and you're surrounded by people who have, they have veterancy behind them and everything, and you don't want to sound stupid or look dumb or whatever it is, but I feel like more often than not, they might respect you more just for, asking the question because a lot of people don't. Um, and don't be afraid to try things and put yourself out there. The worst thing that's going to happen is they're going to tell you no, or maybe you just get fired, but you find out that that's not the place for you. You shouldn't be held back. So I would say don't hold yourself back in the end if you're younger. For the older generation, maybe the same first start of it, ask questions, because I feel like a lot of the times there may be some things that is confusing, or they think they know what they know. But in today's day and age, a lot of times it's changed, or there's a different way to do it, and maybe it's even more effective or less time consuming. So I would say ask questions as well. Um, and be a little forgiving for the younger guys when they try things, because there's so many things that are changing on a weekly basis, even now with AI. So we're still learning too, as you guys are as well. So maybe be a little patient with us sometimes. But other than that, just ask questions and yeah, be patient.
Well, thank you for that. And you made me conscious of language is so important. And in the revenue science work, we really stress all speaking the same language. But when we bring in the multiple generations, often there's this language thing.
Yeah, there's a language barrier.
Yeah. And so, and if you don't ask questions and you don't clarify what you heard somebody say,
You won't
you
be
just
unified or aligned.
ever. So, well, Josh, this has been a hoot, and it makes me just really glad we're going to go do these together going forward. So I'm all excited. And any last word for the audience?
Um, Thank you for being with us, for these 5 years. As I said, it's cool to be on the screen now. I'll still be behind the screen as well, editing, but it's cool to be here. So thank you for having us. And if there's any topics or questions that anybody wants us to cover in the future, just let us know.
Absolutely. And if you have anything that we can help you with, please reach out, whether it's a question or you need to get your team certified in chief revenue officer thinking, or you got to build a revenue strategy. Any of those things, just reach out. And we're built. Part of what Josh and I are building this year is a very strong partner community, people who will work with us with clients and deliver services. So if you think that's you as well, reach out. We'd love to talk. So thank you, and glad to have you on our first of the 6th year.
Yep. Thank you for letting me be here.